So good morning, everybody. Or I guess it's just a bit afternoon, 1 minute afternoon on a Monday morning. So thank you all for being here for our next WACCT webinar. I think you'll find something interesting today with a friend of mine who has offered her time to come before WACCT to give us some new perspective on what it can look like to really look into what strategic foresight means. And I'm not going to jump ahead of Andrea. I'm going to let her talk about what that means. But Andrea has over 25 years experience working with community college trustees. And that's how I met her, with her serving as the executive director of both the Oregon and the Arkansas College Trustees Association. So we've been to lots of meetings together over the years, and she has now started her own consulting practice focused on applying this strategic foresight process to higher education. So we thought it would be something that might be interesting for our Wyoming trustees and colleges to just dip the toe in and learn more. And Andrea is going to do that here. And if there's some opportunities, then that can organically happen. But for an informative session today, some learning that we all like to do, this is going to be where the ticket is today. So Andrea, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll manage the Zoom. Folks, as usual, we can go just raise our hands like normal, or you can use the functions on the Zoom. I'll try and watch that. I'll try and watch the chat. So Andrea, thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. So let me share screen here. Give me just a moment to work the technology. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint? And can you see just my PowerPoint? You can't see the rest of my screen. Oops, let me go back.
Right. I think what you want on there is up there.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. I need to get it back to the beginning. There we go. All right. So I'm going to talk about strategic foresight today. And as Erin mentioned, I spent 25 years working with associations. And one of the things that I found in my work is this sense that there's more conversations that we could be having, and really kind of a focus on the future. And so I became fascinated with looking at futures theory and how we can approach our conversations differently. I enrolled at the University of Houston. They have the one and only master's degree in strategic foresight. And from that process, learned a great deal about a very structured method by how we can look at the future. So I'm going to kind of walk us through that today, and then talk specifically about some skills that you can use to think about the future. So a little bit about strategic foresight, what it is. It's really designed to get you beyond thinking about the day-to-day activities. So to really envision 10 to 15 years out. It's a methodology that allows you to really kind of see into the future early, so you're not reacting to change as much as you are planning for it. And really kind of help structure a place where you can be looking really creatively and boldly about the future, and allows you to make better decisions in the short term that really kind of move you towards that long-term vision. So it's really using foresight and futures thinking. It's really a mindset shift, and it's a way to approach your work in a different fashion. So a little bit about why this matters for trustees. I think it really helps. It's a skill set that helps the board guide long-term strategy. And also having a future-focused foresight kind of framework allows you to ask questions differently in your board meetings. in this kind of area of rapidly changing dynamics. It links kind of a long-term vision with what's happening with students in your community. And it's really designed as we move through a space where there is a lot more uncertainty. It gives trustees the tools to kind of move forward through that. So as we think about Foresight, Foresight as a methodology has several key components to it. The first component is really looking at the drivers of change. And in a Foresight practice, you're constantly scanning the environment for what might be happening out there. What are the trends that are going to be impacting your institution? What are those ideas that kind of hint at what the future might look like? And how do we kind of navigate around those? So Foresight has a very strong look at drivers of change. One of the other key components of Foresight is to look at kind of multiple scenarios. So it's not picking just one vision of the future, but it's looking at multiple ways the future could unfold, and kind of playing with each scenario and thinking, okay, what if? What if this were to happen? What does it mean for our institution? And really kind of doing that in-depth look. So let me talk a little bit about the drivers of change and kind of what is impacting institutions right now. So this is certainly looking at it across the country. I know that you'll have very specific drivers and trends that are impacting your institutions in Wyoming. But what I wanted to do here was to kind of share what kind of some of the trends are throughout the country. And really the key here is to be looking at these holistically and asking the question of what does this mean for my institution long term? So one of the trends certainly is demographic shifts. A lot of conversation about the enrollment cliff. I don't know what's happening to your K through 12 graduation rates, but it is a trend across the country that those are dropping, which is leading to a drop in the 18 to 24 population. And that's really due to declining birth rates. And we're projected to see that for at least the next 10 to 15 years. Estimates on a national basis is about a 15% drop in those high school graduates. There's an aging population, and that does shift some resources and focus on the older populations. And one of the things we're seeing as there is less 18 to 12-year-olds coming in, seeing a greater shift to more adult learners. One of the other drivers of change is really looking at technological advancements. And this is really ways that technology is and can impact institutions. And certainly a lot of it is around AI, certainly with ChatGPT and what that means, and a lot more with virtual learning. There's a lot that can be done now with virtual reality. There's actually a program that's been developed at Arizona State University that completely offers Biology 101 on a virtual learning platform. And it's designed around game theory and takes students through a imagined universe that helps them learn biology skills. As we move towards more use of AI, and we look at it for tutor support, for grading, for really aids to faculty, it kind of raises a large question of, in this day of AI, what does that mean for faculty and teaching and learning? And I think that's a key question that colleges will have to really grapple with around the next 10 years or so.
Hey, Andrea,
Yes.
we're not seeing any slides. Are you supposed to be showing a slide deck?
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Let me get that. It was sharing for a moment. Now, can you see it?
Yes, we
Oh,
can see it, Andrea, and I'm sorry, I was sitting here taking notes, not watching the
Oh,
chat. My fault. So it's back on. Nope, now it's gone away.
okay. Let me
It
try to
was
get this back. Hold on just a moment. I have to reshare it.
okay.
Now, can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. I was going through the drivers of change. So we've talked about the demographic shifts and the technological advancement. The next driver of change is really around changes to the workforce and the impact that AI and automation is going to have. There's estimates right now that by 2030, 30% of all skills that workers hold will be able to be displaced by AI and automation, which is going to demand a huge shift in those that are employed and the skills that they need. And a lot of those will turn to community colleges. And so thinking about those adult learners that need to come back for training and retraining and what that might mean. Um, Certainly, there's a lot of funding and policy shifts. I know you're seeing that around funding in Wyoming and what that means for the support for your institutions. That is a trend that's happening around the country and really leads to some critical questions. In an era of less funding, what's the core mission of institutions? And how do you grapple with the questions about what that means? And as you're projecting out a 10-year vision, trying to figure out what that means in a world where there's less support for the institutions. Um, the next piece that really is changing and impacting institutions is the public perception of higher ed. And that is dropping. You can look at poll after poll on the national scene, and it really shows a drop in support for higher education and an increase in the belief that there are good jobs available with just a high school diploma. Recent polling shows that 66% of the population thinks that good jobs are available without post-secondary education. At the same time, estimates are of the new jobs that are created between now and 2030, 80% of them will need some sort of post-secondary education. So there is a real mismatch there. And the support for higher education is just dropping. Students are increasingly seeing that it's not a good value assessment for their future. Another trend that we're seeing in higher education is really around changes in how learning is delivered. There's an increase in MOOCs, multiple online courses, that we're seeing a rapid increase in students that are turning to them. They're turning to boot camps, they're turning to Google, they're turning to Amazon as ways to get education in a different way. And asking the question of 18 to 24-year-olds who are not in any type of post-secondary, 60% of them in the last year have used YouTube as a way to learn skills. And so there's greater competition for community colleges and how learning is delivered. And then obviously there's increased rural and urban disparities, which I know you're very aware of in Wyoming. Certainly broadband is an issue, and looking at regional economic shifts. So those are all kind of some of the drivers of change that are impacting institutions. So what does this all mean? So strategic foresight is a way to kind of grapple with the future and to take a long-term vision at what colleges could be. And in the work that I do, I've been working with colleges around the country, and it's really around setting a long-term 10-year vision out to say, okay, we were designing the college of 2035. What would that college look like? What are the key ways that learning is provided? What do our students look like? How is our institution structured? What is our business model? And I do believe, given all these drivers, how the college is going to look 10 years from now is going to be different than how it looks today. And so how do we creatively look at that in a long-term vision? So I've got a couple of exercises that we're going to do today that kind of just gives you some tools for long-term thinking and to start to give ways in which you might, at your board level, engage in using strategic foresight differently. So we're going to do a thought experiment and envision a day in the life of one of your students in 2035. And what I want you to do is to think about that student. How old is their student? What's their background? Why did they come to your institution? And map out their day from morning to night. How do they learn? Where do they take classes? Do they use AI? What is their work situation like? How are they paying for institution? Do they still pay tuition, or is it a subscription model? What does that look like? And I want you to make it as vivid and specific as possible to really envision that future student. So we're going to do, so Erin, how many people do we have in? Oh, Erin, you're on mute.
Good Lord, you think I haven't done this before? There's eight participants total.
Okay, so I'm going to put you into breakout sessions so that you can talk about these questions. Again, the questions are really to describe your student in 2035. What does their day look like, and how do they interact with your institution? So let me go to the breakout. Okay, now I'm having technical difficulties. Where's the breakout session? Erin, do you have me set as co-host? Erin, you're on mute again.
I am.
I'm not seeing the button for breakout sessions.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
I think if you just make me co-host.
I can't figure out how to do it co-host, but I'm going to make you the host.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Sorry, everybody.
All right, let me move you into breakout rooms. I'm going to do 3 rooms, 2 rooms of 3 and 1 room of 2. And we'll give you about 10 minutes. And again, really paint a picture as what that college looks like and differentiate it from what your college looks like in today's world. Really think that 10 years out. So again, I'll give you about 10 minutes and have fun. Well, it looks like, how many people do we have? I'm only seeing 3, Erin. Oh, no, there we go.
Hi, Andrea. I went to a room and no one was in there and then it said it was gonna close, so I just came back to Laurel.
As they always do, Paige.
You're on mute.
Yes, there we go. We seem to have lost some people, so we only have 3 people in this. So we're not going to do breakout rooms. We're just going to talk as a group here. Erin, I think we lost some people. Erin, you're on mute again.
I'm getting it. I'm getting it. I think we had a few people drop off right before the breakout room. So I apologize for that. I guess it's just the way it happened today. But who we have left on here are 2 folks who are employees of the Community College Commission, and Tiffany Marshall's a trustee at Western Wyoming Community College. So we have 1 trustee with us left. We had a few others who were on the call. So
okay, great. So what we're going to really talk about, so for the next 10 minutes, I'll let the 3 of you think about kind of what that student looks like 10 years from now. So I'll just turn it over to all of you to kind of envision that.
well, I can tee up what Tiffany and I had a minute together or so, and quickly Tiffany was quick to mention enrollments are up for Western, and I think that's true across the state. And so I think that's a great place to start there. Andrea, we've had several years of declining enrollments, and so we're seeing more than a 1-year trend of enrollments increasing. So for Wyoming, that's really good news.
That's great.
Yeah.
When I was talking to the colleges about the enrollment increases, they were saying that a lot of it is not that they have a lot more people applying, therefore they have more enrollment, that the more of the people that are applying are accepting. Is partly why they're seeing the increase in enrollment, which I thought was interesting.
So to get us started, let's do a quick warm-up exercise of thinking about the future. So what I'd like you to do is think about 3 facts that are true today of the colleges in your state. So for an example of a fact would be students pay tuition. So think of 3 things that are true today at your institution. So take just 30 seconds to think about what that might be. Okay, so now for this thought experiment, I want you to imagine that in 2035, the opposite is true. And so the question is, if the opposite is true, how did you get there? So for example, the one that I use, students pay tuition, the opposite would be in 2035, they don't pay tuition. And thinking of different ways that they got there, maybe the community pays for it, or it's a subscription service, or there's free community college tuition. Think about the different ways that you got to that opposite fact. So I'll just let you each kind of talk about what you can, give you another minute or 2 to kind of flip your fact, think about the opposite, and imagine how you got there.
So I'll start. So
Okay.
my fact was our colleges provide a mix of hands-on, in-person, and online learning. And so I would say that in 2035, the opposite of that would be, I guess the opposite of it would be there would only be one way of learning, or those 3 modes of learning would be different and not exist in the way they exist now. And I guess what I would hope is that most of the way we teach our non-hands-on in-person learning would not look anything like the way we do it now. So I wish that the way we do it now already didn't exist. And I think that's the part that makes college hard for students, because they don't learn that way anymore. But our classrooms look largely like our classrooms did when we went to college.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that the hands-on pieces are more sophisticated, that they're more out in the community rather than being lab-based or shop-based. And that we can integrate those learning experiences out across our state, provide some flexibility to our students and involve our businesses in that. And the online piece, again, I feel like that's a little bit like in person, and our kids are over the way we started learning online. They don't want a discussion question and they type in you know, their answer or their prompt, and then they respond to two others. They're over that, but we're still doing it. So I don't know, Andrea, that there won't be 3 different or maybe 5 different kinds of
Mhm.
learning, but I hope they're largely transformed.
Okay, okay. That's good. Okay, Laurel, do you have yours?
Well, funny, because mine was pages.
Oh, that seems to be on both of your minds.
We gotta hang out less together.
Right? Well, I was gonna say mine was that they take a combination, right, of virtual and in-person classes. I mean, that's I was going into the fact that AI is going to be everywhere, I think, in the classes in by 2035, right? Like, I don't know what it'll look like. I don't think I fully understand. I don't even think I understand how to properly use it yet. So much less what it'll look like in 10 years. But I think it's going to be, I don't care which way you go, that's going to be a major component of what students are using. And I don't mean like they're going to use it like a Google search engine and use it to cheat. I mean, I think that they're going to, how they do the work will require the use of AI.
Mhm. Erin, what did you come up with?
Well, mine was a little bit different, but I mean, I think it plays into all of this too, is I wrote down that students are largely only aware of the institution that's closest to their community. And you know, I think what gets us from here to there is how can we best serve our students with, because a lot of them are place bound, even probably still then. Collaborating with other schools, some of that happens, but maybe this opportunity where several schools go together to deliver even a course curriculum versus just one course is something more of the future than even more than we see now.
Mhm. All right, Tiffany.
Hi. So kind of along the lines, but I also kind of went a little wonky on my thoughts too, which is fun. So one I to go along with your tuition, so I put on here students pay tuition set by the state, right? Because the state kind of tells us what we can charge. So the opposite of that would be the institutions get a set tuition. I put for us, most local Sweetwater County students that enroll actually get their education funded by our BOCES. And so a lot of that access to education in Sweetwater County, they're actually not paying for. They're able to get their degrees from BOCES scholarships. And then so I guess the opposite of that would be that BOCES goes away or they lose their funding or their funding gets decreased, which is actually what we're seeing, right, with the property tax cuts. Because that's something one of the mills pays for our BOCES funding. And then the last one that I put is that we have a lot of high school students that are dual enrolled. While they're in high school, they're also getting college credit. So that goes away then we're losing some of that enrollment.
Sure, sure. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is each of you spend a couple of minutes thinking about the student in 2035. So again, think of who your student is, what age are they, what are their goals, and kind of think about their day from morning to night. How do they access the institution? How are they learning? How are they paying for it? So think about it, and then we're going to kind of share 2 or 3 details about that student's day. And again, this is designed around envisioning 10 years from now. So it shouldn't look like today. Really kind of stretch your imagination on this to think about what that looks like. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that.
Hey, Andrea, I apologize. I'm gonna have to jump. I've got someone in the governor's office pinging me on something that I need to
Oh,
research.
no
I
worries. Go
apologize.
for it.
Hey, Andrea, my apologies. I'm so sorry. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Can you give
Oh
me,
no.
can you give me a quick rundown of one more time of what we're thinking about? I got
So
the first part of it.
thinking about the student in 2035, what does that student's day look like?
Okay.
What's different than it is today? What are they studying? How are they learning? How are they paying? Just kind of think about that student.
Thank you.
Okay, do people have some ideas to share? Who would like to go first?
I'll give you my thoughts if you'd like.
Okay, great, Tiffany.
So my notes that I have is I envision it being more tech-based. I think we'll probably see more online classes. Because the way the world seems to be going more trade-based, tech-based, I think that will significantly. I guess in our area, I envision it being more trade specific. So potentially our students are either working and going to school or focusing more on those trade certificates to get into our local industries. But what I really hope to see is that maybe we have a couple more bachelor programs that are available to our communities, because that's one of our initiatives over here is to provide that access to bachelors.
Okay, great. Paige, do you want to share yours?
Sure. So I don't know if any of you have ever read a book that the name of just lost is totally gone. I was just gonna say it to you all, and then I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna say because I lost the name of the book, but I'm gonna think of it while I tell you the story. But it was about getting rid of weight-bearing walls in our institutions. And I think that by 2035, I'm hoping that our colleges and to some extent our high schools look more like collaborative hubs of learning rather than separate silos of learning like classrooms. So I agree with Tiffany that I think a lot of things that students can and will and should learn are available to them online. But the valuable part is how we talk about it and work together and solve problems. And I don't know that it has to take place in person, but I think having our campuses, places where people would go to work together, collaborate, do projects, things like that. And do a lot of the learning online makes sense. I do think if there's hands-on components that even though it might look a little bit different, that those would probably still be provided. And students could practice things because it's not probably practical to practice, welding at certain other places. I don't think we just want people welding around wherever they want. So I'm hoping that students also have a lot more choice in how they demonstrate their learning and how they practice showing it. And I think those are things that could happen when they come together rather than, differentiating some of the learning that they can get on their phone, frankly.
Sure, sure.
So I think the shift has to be in what we ask our students to do. And like you were sharing with us, a lot of the jobs that are out there aren't even going to exist. So what can we do as humans that can't be replaced by AI and start fostering that?
Exactly. Okay. John, do you want to go?
Now, Andrew, John's gonna shame me because he's like the dude about all this future tech.
No, not really. Well, first of all, sorry I was late. And Aaron, thanks for the text. Well, I think my biggest concern is whether we exist in 10 years at all as community colleges without some very good work on the part of people here, Aaron and Paige. I think that's a particular first concern. And the sustainable funding piece that allows us to even exist for our students going into the future, I think is a fundamental question. And I don't mean to be overly pessimistic, but it's going to take a lot of good work with our current legislature to make that happen. I think that I agree with much of what people have been said. Paige, I don't know the name of the book you're thinking of, but the concept that I'm thinking of when you talked there was the flipped classroom, where if there is going to be an in-person context where people come together, it's not to learn the material, but it's to come and to collaboratively work together to demonstrate that material. So they're going to do the book learning online. Somehow, if there's going to be online learning, I think it's going to be AI based. It's probably going to be virtual reality based, maybe with three-dimensional avatars, interacting with one another. I agree with everything that's said about AI. I think that I don't know about the workforce needs, but I do think our students will continue to be all the above. There won't be a typical community college student. There'll be workforce people coming in to train up and get new skills, and there'll be traditional age students leaving whatever post public education requirements are in place in 10 years and then coming in for further training. So I think it's kind of the all the above piece there. The two things that I worry most about are our students' ability to collaborate with one another because they have accelerating in 10 years from now. It's a little scary to me how much interaction they actually have with one another directly and how much of that is done virtually. And so how are they able to, in the socio realm, being able to work together in both studies and in actual work? And then the final piece I worry a little bit about is the piece that we call in community colleges called grit. We've seen less and less ability of students to be able to kind of compromise their own particularly unique needs and insist that everything has to match exactly their needs, or they drop out and they're not able to sustain. So,
Okay, great. Erin.
So mine really kind of centered on this AI space. In terms of what that might look like, I kind of envisioned a process that, these students may have an individual AI coach. And that's a word I'm hearing a lot more in terms of advisor, maybe coach, right? Help them navigating not only just workload, but connections to other sorts of classes they could or should be making. I really see that as turning into a really dynamic offering for the students in a way that just takes a lot of these services that are siloed right now, but essential for the success of the student, and tying it all together in a way that it's just not quite there yet. So I was thinking about that, and I haven't had the experience yet with AI bots and whatnot, but a tie between a program and a bot and the ability to have that interpersonal communication, even though it's AI, the extent that it can learn the needs of those students, and where their weaknesses are with, whether it's time management or whatnot, I can see that as being something that's not just for community colleges, but probably for all types of students.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I'm going to share screen again here. And we're going to talk a little bit about how a Foresight project looks. So when we hit play here. Okay, can you see my screen again? Perfect. Okay, so that's kind of one way to vision 10 years out. When I do a Foresight project with a college, what we do is we generate multiple scenarios. And this allows you to kind of look at different options, take a look at those drivers and how they're going to impact colleges with several different ways to look at it. And the way I've done this is we come up with 6 scenarios. The first scenario is muddling through. So this is assuming that you don't make a lot of changes into how you're serving your students, how your institution works, what the business model is. It's just kind of business as usual. And in crafting this scenario, it's really asking the question, if we don't make changes, what does the world look like? What do our institutions look like? And so that's one scenario that's crafted. The second scenario is called incremental decline. And this is really around things getting worse. And I heard John mention, are the colleges going to be around? And so this scenario really kind of takes a look at that from an incremental decline viewpoint and asking the question, okay, let's describe 2035 in an incremental decline scenario. What does that look like? The third scenario that's developed is gradual progress. So this is, you're making innovation. Things are changing, but it's all within the existing system. So it's taking kind of where you are today and making those incremental changes that get you to 2035 that may not look a lot different than where you are today, but you are responding to changes. And then the last scenario is around transformation. And this is really gets fun and interesting. And it's an imagining a different type of institution in 10 years and really kind of mapping out what does that look like. It's new models, it's new ways of serving students. Kind of given where we are, it's going to be very heavy in AI. But it's really kind of designing that futuristic look. And when I do this project, I divide the group up into teams and have each team develop a transformational scenario. And this is something the team does over several hours. Generally a time in between the meetings to develop a PowerPoint and present their transformational scenario of what that looks like. So that gives then the group 6 different scenarios to look at, to think about the future and different ways the future could unfold. And this brings a very rich conversation in. And the next stage is really to decide what is the future that we prefer. Given these 6 worldviews, how do we want to pull this together into a preferred future that really designs that vision for 2035 of where we want to go? And the reason why designing multiple futures works really well is it allows you to kind of play with the different drivers and kind of ask if-then questions. If this were to become true, what might the world look like? So if funding were cut drastically, what might that world look like? And how can institutions redesign to thrive in that type of less resource environment? So it's a way to really dig into those questions and figure out a way to do it differently. So this really is the core of strategic foresight. It's identifying those drivers and really thinking about the different scenarios and what that might look like. What I've done in the past with groups that I've worked with is we come up with storyboards of what those different visions could look like. And I'll send you out a copy of some storyboards that you can look at that we did with a college in Missouri. And taking those storyboards of different visions of the future out to the community and asking the question we've got these different ways the future could unfold. Which one do you like? As you think about our college, what is the path forward? And what is it that's the kind of the core piece of that college? The college I did with this in Missouri, where they really centered on, they talked about whether their college was focused on K through 12, was it focused on workforce, or was it focused on technology, or was it focused as a community hub? And what they really came up with is they wanted to be known in 2035 as kind of the community's living room. And that would really be their focus with a farmer's market and a very strong agricultural program, a barn, just a way to bring the community together as a gathering place into the college. So that's kind of one way to look at it. And then pulling that all together and coming up with those preferred scenarios. So another piece of foresight work is to spend some time looking at wildcards. And a wildcard is an event that has a low probability of happening, but a really high impact to your institution if it does. And what I recommend is taking a couple of hours with your team and identify the wildcards that could impact your institution. And then what you want to do is game them out and say, okay, if this were to happen, what might be our response? So you might look again at funding. If funding is cut 50%, what does that mean? If accreditation rules change, what does that mean for your institution? If you have a natural disaster, what might that mean? So taking a look at those different scenarios and then asking the question of if given all of that, are there decisions that we should be making today that will impact our ability to be resilient if that wild card should occur? So again, this is an exercise that you can use that can be very helpful. So I'm going to go through a couple of other exercises that would be helpful. I think we've got a few minutes left here. One thing that you can do is to put together a regular signals practice in your work. So you're constantly scanning to say, okay, what are the changes that are coming that are going to impact us? And spend some time talking about that. And I would encourage not just conversations about the drivers, but also those pockets of ideas that are just starting to percolate out there. And what might that mean for your institution? So for example, one of the things I've seen some places is educational hubs. So as an idea in very large geographic areas, doing educational hubs located throughout the region where students can come in and have all the tools to use AI and virtual reality. So that's kind of a signal out there of an idea of what might be happening. And I would encourage you, either in your leadership teams, at your board meeting, once a quarter, twice a year, put 15 minutes on your agenda to say, okay, what are the signals that we're seeing out there and how that might impact your institution? Another tool that you can use, again, talking about looking at that 2020, that 10-year vision 2035, is as an activity, write some future headlines. Imagine that your college has achieved that vision that you've created, and your local newspaper is doing a story. What does that story say? And how is that framed for your institution? And one of the things I would have you think about that is if the reporter were to ask you, what were the 3 key decisions that allowed you to make that future become real? What were those 3 decisions? And that's a way to really surface ideas that you could be taking action on today to achieve that future. So if you are a trustee thinking about what are the 3 key decisions that the board made to make that future a reality. And this is just a way to kind of shift your thinking a little bit to get at what are the decisions that we can make today that are going to engender that future that we want. And then I already talked about wildcards and that kind of flip your assumptions. Those are great tools, and I would recommend that you do the wildcards once a year. Talk about what that might be so you can be resilient in the face of change. And the flip your assumptions, again, do that once or twice a year. Spend half an hour where everybody can think of 3 to 5 facts that they know to be true and flip the facts and say, okay, if the opposite were true, how did we get there? And it's just a way to kind of stretch your thinking to be looking at things differently. So I think I've got 5 minutes left just to kind of close on this. Using foresight is not about predicting the future. It's about preparing for the future differently. And I think it's really a key tool for trustees to use in becoming future-focused trustees and using the skills of foresight to ask better questions and spend time differently as you think about your institution. So I would encourage you to continue the conversation at your board retreats, at your board meetings. If there's ways that I can be helpful, please let me know. If you'd like to spend a few minutes with me kind of brainstorming how you might use it as your institution and what other tools you might be able to use. Erin's got my information. We're going to send out some information and let me know how it can be helpful. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have.
Andrea, these slides we can make available to everyone, correct?
Yes.
Okay. John, did you have a question?
Go ahead.
I did have a little bit of question, and it might be just that I missed the first 15 minutes of your presentation, Andrea. So if that's the case, tell me to show up on time and don't answer my question. um, I saw what I thought were like the 4 scenarios: muddling through, incremental decline, gradual progress, and transformation. But I heard you talk about 6 scenarios, not 4.
So we do 3 transformational scenarios.
Thank you.
So what I do is I divide each group into teams. So anywhere from 3 to 5 teams, depending on the size of the group. And each team comes up with those 4 scenarios. So we'll have, if we have 3 teams, we'll come up with 3 transformational scenarios. And then what we did is took those scenarios out to the community and get feedback in terms of what scenario they would like to see for the future of the college.
Got it. Very good. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so what I will send to Aaron to send out to you is a copy of these slides. I've got a briefing paper on strategic foresight and how trustees can use it that I will send to Aaron. And then I will send a copy of the storyboards that we used in Missouri to take out to the community that had 5 different visions of how the future could unfold in 2035. And like I said, if you want to have a hour meeting with me to talk about strategies on how you can use it at your institution, I'm happy to do so. I've got some other tools you might be helpful for you to use. So let me know how I can help.
Great.
I think that's it, Aaron.
Thank you for this, Andrea. No, this is great. And I know we're just, like I said, dipping our
Sure.
toes in to learn about this. But even what I heard today, I know all of the boards would find something valuable. So thank you for providing what you did. And we've Trustee Marshall is on the WACCT board, and so she can also talk about this with the other WACCT trustees, and that's a good way to kind of get it out there to each of the 8 boards. So this was great. I don't know what happened to the other 13 people who signed up. Maybe that's something I need to work on to just make sure everyone gets it in front of them. But I'm just so grateful for this. That's why we're recording it as well. But I feel like there might be room to work in the future. So Andrea, thanks for your time today.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you, everybody, for participating.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.